Good morning. Good morning. How the devil are you doing this Monday? Where did that weekend go then, people? Where did that go? I seem to say goodbye to you on Friday, and an alarm went off, and I'm saying hello to you. I have no idea what happened there. Just all gone, done and dusted. Dan Cullen was first here, as he always is. How are we all? I'm doing okay. Yeah, doing okay. Didn't do excuse me. Didn't sleep particularly well last night, but that's a whole other story. Alex Latham, taking a break from teaching people how not to hurt themselves in access equipment. Good morning, Alex. How are you doing, my friend? Good of you to join us. Thank you very much indeed for being here. I've got some news. As you are well aware, we are now, well, including today's show, we are now 19 shows from our 1000th episode. I'm obviously going to mark it in some way, but I started to write the notes on the origin story of the Breakfast Show yesterday, and it quickly escalated. I'm currently at about 3,000 words, which is quite a lot. So I've decided I'm going to produce. You'll get it free of charge if you're a regular on the show. You'll get it free of charge. I'm going to do a commemorative publication. Probably only be a PDF, but I have named names in it. And those of you that are here on a regular basis, I'm looking at you, Alex, at Ken, at Dan, anybody else that happens to be here, you will get a mention in dispatches. Quite enjoyed writing it, actually. It took me back a little bit. Dan Cullen went all the way to Edinburgh yesterday. Took 10 hours on the train. Was there a reason for this, or did you fancy a trip to Edinburgh? Ken Hatter is here. Good morning, Ken. How is it in Wales? Not bad. Not bad. We're probably only a few weeks away from about 4 or 5 months of Ken showing us photographs or icons of rain and snow and stuff. Good morning, Ken. Thank you for joining us all the way from Wales. 13 hours yesterday coming back and getting to Woking totally shattered. I'm not surprised. Why on earth would you go to Edinburgh for I'm guessing a few hours? I'm sure you had your reasons. Please share them with us. Yes. The publication that I'm working on, haven't got a name for it yet. 1000th show. I really don't know. If anyone's got any suggestions on what I might call it, then please let me know. But yeah, once we do our 1000th show, which is it'll be this time in 2 weeks, all things being equal, you'll be getting a publication that will chart the rise and fall and the rise and the fall and the rise and the rise of the mighty Breakfast Show. And as I say, you will get a mention in dispatches, so look out for that. Dan Cullen says went to visit a friend on Saturday last minute, called on Saturday morning as he was leaving the country this week. Fair enough. That's a perfectly good excuse to do so. In that case, fair play to you. I must admit, 10 hours on the train really appeals to me. Some people would see that as lost time wasted. Not for me. I'd put my nose in a book or stick my headphones on and listen to an audiobook. That would be time well spent. Fair play to you, Dan. I am actually quite envious. Anyway, people, it is that time of the day. So without further ado, let me roll the intro, post the question of the day, and get this weird thing, what we call a show, on the road. Beginning with this. See, Dan and I are of one mind. Loved his journey. He says, watching YouTube and reading a book. It's time well spent. I saw a quote the other day. Bearing in mind, my primary role still to this very day is not a live streamer or professional pillock. I am a writer. And somebody put up on the platform Substack, if you find a writer looking out the window, they're working. That's me. I often look out the window and I consider that to be work. Good morning, everyone. It is Monday, the 18th of August. Welcome to the Breakfast Show. I am your host, Mark Anthony, the Walrus of Demolition, the Lord High Chancellor of live streaming. I wonder how much of this preamble will survive the cut when we go to our new look. We shall see. In today's show, XCMG cranes on the world's largest cable stay bridge, and the location has to be seen to be believed. We're staying Chinese with the LiuGong electric excavator, which is swinging into action. Komatsu is cutting repair costs with remanufactured parts, and we are once again featuring Belgian quality, no waffle, from a company that we introduced to you a couple of weeks ago called Gebroeders Geens. Yes, we're back with them again. Plus, in my morning monologue today, battered but unbowed. But for how much longer? Before we get to all of that, we do need to quickly remind you of our question of the day, which looks like, I'm hoping I've done this right, it looks like this. Oh, do excuse me, my gulping. Last bits of tea. Dan says, at the Zoom line, I've got an world-breaking scissor lift. Don't think I fancy going in it. Not a fan of the scissor lift. Not a fan of the scissor lift at all. Now, my question of the day, and we've had a great question, a great answer from Ken Hatcher already. But I'm going to give you the background to this. Have you seen those American-style hard hats? You know, the ones with the brim all the way around, usually fancy colours, sometimes have a chrome finish, loads of stickers on them. They've inspired today's question of the day. I was watching a video over the weekend. I thought, oh, see, I'd love one of those. But hung on the wall would be nice. And my question, therefore, is this. If you could customise your hard hat, and if you could do so without falling foul of the health and safety police or your site manager, oh, do excuse me, what would your hard hat look like? Now, personally, mine is entirely predictable. I'm going for a claret and blue colour scheme with the West Ham crossed hammers on the front. In absolute truth, we were abysmal this weekend, and I fear it's going to be a very long season. But as the saying goes, I am West Ham till I die. So I would go West Ham hard hat. Ken Hatcher going far more practical. He says he would go lights and radio. Lights and radio, yeah, I like that. My daughter actually got for Christmas, I think it was last year, got a woolly hat. Yeah, quite a nice woolly hat actually, but with speakers built in. You put it down over your ears, and you've got a hat with sound. Love it. Dan Cullen says 285 feet. That's some height. Imagine someone switches it off. How would you get down? I'd be willing to wait. I'm not climbing down, I'll tell you that much. 285 feet. I must admit, access equipment, and Alex, please offer reassurance if you would. Not the biggest fan. I have no problem with heights. I really don't. But when you get up those things, scissor lifts always feel like they're doing a little bit of a wobble. And if you move, even though you're in a harness and you know it's perfectly stable, but you move and the whole thing seems to amplify. Not a fan of that. The one that I really don't like though is a boom lift. When you look down the boom and you can see the boom kind of bending away. Is that right? Is it supposed to be doing that? Not sure. Now, I'm not going to attempt. Well, we'll give it a go. Usanu Ndiaye is looking for a job, I guess, as an operator, and he is watching all the way from Senegal. Senegal. Good morning to you. I'm sorry about my pronunciation of your name, but all the way from Senegal, Mr. I'm going to go for that. Mr. Ndiaye, good morning to you. He's left us his phone number, which I don't think is a particularly good idea, but good morning. Alex Latham says, Zoomline's new boom, 82 meters on a boom with that bend. As I say, don't have a major problem with heights, but that would put the put the willies up me a little bit. So keep get those things coming in. How would you customize your hard hat given the choice, and assuming that your site manager and the health and safety executive wouldn't haul you over the coals for it? While you're doing that, going to say good morning. Excuse me. Good morning to Jim Turner. Modular Jim Turner has just arrived. I'm going to press his button right now just to say good morning to him. It is time. We've just been talking about heights. We've got some serious heights coming up now. I'm going to show you something all the way from China um, after this. Now, we don't do cranes here. There are other people that do it far better than we do. But when I saw the landscape for this, and I say the landscape, a lot of it is skyscape. When I saw that, I thought, no, the chaps and the chapesses need to see this. This is XCMG working on the world's tallest cable stay bridge. And if you do have a fear of heights, now might be a good time to go and do something else. Some site, right? Some site. Now, I'm going to do a very quick good morning to a few people. Nigel Williams is in the house. Morning, Nigel. Just a very quick heads up. I did mention earlier in the show, for those of you that weren't here at that time, I am doing like a commemorative publication for our 1000th show, which is a couple of weeks away. And a lot of people that are here will get a mention in dispatches, Nigel Williams being among them. We'll come back to our question of the day in just a moment. I'm going to say good morning to Stephanie, who says, good morning, Mark. Back at work again after 2 weeks travelling through the north of England and Scotland. And, of course, witnessed our blowdown at Cotton Power Plant. Good morning to you, Stefan. It was some blowdown. Were you there for the day, or were you elsewhere watching from afar? I obviously was watching from afar. But yeah, hats off to the team there. Now, going back to our question of the day, how would you customize your hard hat? Now, Dan Cullen has come up with an idea here. Now, I know Dan is quite a commercially minded guy, but I wonder about this. I not necessarily the way he has suggested, but I wonder if there is some scope for this. He wants a Bluetooth headset, perfectly doable, and equipment pictures on it, and or charge for advertising for companies. Now, is there any scope for that? I don't know. I'll leave you to decide. But here's a thought. Imagine if you could actually have like a display panel on your hard hat, and on it, rather than displaying advertising, you actually displayed safety warnings or safety reminders, that kind of thing. A bit like the, you have the ticker tape things that go round. I was going to say that go round the bottom, like that. You imagine if that was on a hard hat. I mean, not that obviously, but if you could put something on a hard hat that constantly reminded your friends and colleagues around you to behave themselves in a safe manner, Dan, you may have just had the $1 million idea. Who knows? Jim Turner says just a Bluetooth connection and a speaker or earpiece. Yeah, good shout. Everybody wants sound and vision apparently, like David Bowie. Yes, David Bowie, sound and vision. Stephen Edwards was at Cotton Power Station for 2 days. Fantastic stuff. It really was. It was for those of you who don't know, I mean, we haven't featured it here for reasons I won't bore you with, but yes, it was a record-breaking blast. A record-breaking blast. Lots and lots of cooling towers, all in one shot. Those that were involved in it, those that were responsible for the explosives, need to take a bow. you have my my deepest admiration. Messages from Twitch that mean absolutely nothing to me. So I'm going to crack on. We'll be back. We're staying Chinese. We've just had XCMG. We're going to stay Chinese. We're going LiuGong next after this.
If you are enjoying this episode, please consider supporting the show. You can leave us a tip at buymeacoffee.com/demolition news.
Yeah, I promised you LiuGong. If you were here last week, you might recall that we actually showed you the breadth of the LiuGong electric equipment range. We're going to focus on one particular machine this time around, and it is an excavator. And it looks like this. I'll come back to all things electric in a moment, or all things LiuGong in a moment. Anybody watching this show from the outside, and knowing our audience as they do, they might be tempted. They'd be wrong, but they might be tempted to dismiss those that view this show as daft old digger drivers. You do so at your peril. Get a load of this, right? And if there's anybody out there that is technology minded and is looking for an idea with which to revolutionize the construction business, get a load of this. Nigel Williams. He would like his hard hat to feature a QR code that links to a system that can confirm his inductions and his competencies. Furthermore, he would like a Meta Glasses type camera on the brim for a point of view recording of pre-start checks. Nigel, well done, mate. Well done. I think that's a cracking idea. I mean, I do wonder about, excuse me, still got the last knockings of this cough. I do wonder about the notion of having dash cams. I realise we do have cameras fitted and they can be used for, debriefing and, accident reporting and that kind of thing. But that's kind of from a machine perspective. Imagine that for the individual operator. So you can, as Nigel, I'm just going to read it again. QR code. So, anybody wants to know what Nigel's good at, what he's not so good at, what his competencies are, what card he holds, scan the QR code, bosh, there you go. There's everything he needs to know. But at the same time, he is wearing these, Meta style glasses. There's a pair in this house. Fred uses them, and you will record, your pre-start checks, your setup in the machine, your operation of that machine. So, should anything untoward happen, or should anything good happen, you could then interrogate that camera, look at what happened, and you will be able to figure out exactly what was going on. Nigel, that is an absolute corker. corker of an idea. He also says Lynch already have a number of full electric machines, forklifts from Farasin and excavators from Sany and JCB. Continuing Dan Cullen's idea, Andy Thornton, who is not actually a construction type, but I like his style of thinking. Question of the day: as a hard hat is for safety, why not sensors for hydration, blood pressure, people in vicinity, and kettle switched on within 1 kilometer? Yeah, the last bit isn't necessary because most of the operators I know can smell a brewing cup of tea at least a mile away. Not a problem at all. But yeah, imagine hydration, blood pressure, blood sugar. I'm saying this as a type 2 merchant. Listen, I think you guys, that was a throwaway suggestion as a question of the day today, and you've blown my mind. Jim Turner says, why don't folk have advertising on machines? Plenty of machines work at the side of the road or rail where the general public are. So why not have a big magnetic Domino's pizza sign on a 13-tonner's arse? Yes, why not? Why not? I mean, I think there is a degree of ego at play with the little advertising that there is on machines. Obviously, you tend to get the name of the manufacturer that actually produced the machine. Most companies, I think, contractors, plant hirers, like to have their name on it. But why not? And certainly, if you're in a location where perhaps there is a McDonald's just up the road, or a Pizza Hut, or a Domino's, or something, why not have that? Going further, we'll go back to this safety message. Why not use the tail end of the machine to have flashing signs of warnings and safety reminders and that kind of thing? Yeah. Not a Gary Muirhead says, good morning, everyone. Sorry I'm late. There is no problem with you being late, Gary, whatsoever. We just glad you're here and in one piece. Good morning to you, my friend, and thank you for joining us. We are talking, just so you know, Gary, my throwaway question of the day today, not one of yours, funnily enough. Question of the day was, how would you customize your hard hat? And I didn't think it through. I just basically said I'd have a West Ham coloured one with the crossed hammers on the front. Oh, not you lot. They're coming up with blood pressure monitors and advertising banners and Bluetooth connectivity, a Meta glasses installed. The audience is way smarter than the monkey sat here, I'll tell you that. We will be back in just a moment after a smidgen of this. We're talking remanufactured parts with the mighty Komatsu, so stick around.
Since the finance bill came into effect in April, the construction industry has seen a surge of fuel thefts. The rising cost of living has placed an additional risk of theft by employees and contractors, as well as opportunistic thieves. By using diesel dye and placing warnings of its use, you are sending a clear message that this is your fuel.
So I will come back to Komatsu in a moment, but listen, the conversation continues, and it never ceases to amaze me. Dan says some very good ideas. It's a wonder no one ever came up with any of this. Yeah, I agree. This is the one that really got me though, and I realise if anybody follows Nigel Williams, you will know that he is basically like an Adonis of a man these days. Quite fancy him himself, I do. You're right, Nigel. You're a long way away. You're quite safe. But he says this: I would love to see a collaboration between a major plant hire company and a nationwide gym chain, and excuse me, and collaborative advertising for discounted staff memberships. Now, I was only half joking. Nigel is taking extremely good care of himself at the moment, which I'm really pleased to see. Not that he was in bad shape before, but he's being very public about that which he puts in his body. He's on his diet and he's cooking everything else. He's also spending a lot of time at the gym, pumping iron and generally getting himself in shape, which I think is admirable. But what a great idea that is! What a great idea that is! And think about the long-term benefits. Ultimately, I'm sure this is probably one of the motivators for Nigel. Why would you want to go to the gym? Well, to live a little bit longer, to be a little bit fitter, to spend more time with your family. And I know Nigel's got a daughter, much younger than him. That's how daughters work. So he's basically looking after himself to be better equipped for the day and to live a little bit longer. Would that not be a great thing to roll out across the whole of the industry? You work for this plant hire company that gives you access to, I don't know, David Lloyd, or my son works for David Lloyd and I can't think of any of the others, but the Virgin have gyms, don't they? Yeah, all of those kind of things. Wouldn't that be fantastic? Iago Gold says bom dia and then says in brackets, good morning. Iago Gold, who is all the way from Brazil, home of the greatest footballers apart from Zinedine Zidane in the world. Good morning, and bom dia to you as well. Thank you very much indeed for joining us. And Chris Ford says, good morning eventually. Can't beat Mondays. No, but Mondays can definitely beat you and me and everybody else. Good morning, everyone. Just to bring Chris up to speed, we are talking about how would you customize hard hats. I suggested originally color schemes. No, everybody else is talking about lights and Bluetooth connectivity and advertising and blood pressure monitors and Lord alone knows what else. If there is a technology company watching this, please get in touch and figure out how you're going to produce these fancy hard hats and figure out how you're going to share your success with the people that have come up with the ideas. I promised you some Komatsu, and Komatsu you shall have. Obviously, we talk about remanufacturing here on the show on a fairly regular basis. And we tend to do it for entire machines. You take your machine back, your Cat D10, you say, there you go, Finney, or whoever your local dealer is, sort that lot out, would you? And they take it away, they sandblast it, they basically give you back a machine that is good as new, in some cases better than new, because it's got even more up-to-date widgets on it. But remanufacturing also applies to individual parts. Same rules apply, and they're cheaper. Take a look. Going to go back to the subject of gyms. These shows never ever travel in a straight line, so we're going off slightly to the left now. I'm going to do this one from Dan very quickly. Sitting in the machine waiting for a fitter as he's got a diesel leak. But going back to gyms, Nigel Williams says, my 6-year-old daughter needs me to be a fitter and stronger role model and father figure. 100%. Lynch Plant Hire subsidizes 50% of his gym membership. Well, Lynch Plant, first of all, I tip my hat to you. What a fantastic idea. Think about that. Think about a fitter, stronger, more able Nigel Williams. The chances are assuming he's not absolutely cream crackered from his time at the gym, the chances are Nigel Williams will be a more energetic and more productive part of the team, having been to the gym. Chances are he will get less issues with bad backs and bad knees and bad hips. He will lose less time sick because he is that bit more resilient. I reckon that Lynch Plant Hire have made a very, very, very wise investment there. The chances are, and listen, bearing in mind they've probably negotiated some sort of deal, bearing in mind the size of Lynch Plant Hire, they have probably negotiated some sort of deal where they're getting discounted membership themselves, but they are sensible enough to realise that if their workers are going to the gym, they are likely to be more productive, less sick days. I reckon that's an investment that probably pays dividends. So fair play to Lynch Plant. I have to say, I'm very impressed by that. Jim Turner says, the gym is addictive when the fitness bug gets you. You never believe it now, but I used to be a right gym bunny years ago. Is there photographic evidence of this, Jim? Were you an iron pumper, or were you a cardio type of guy? What was your deal? What was your deal? Gary Muirhead came to the show late, but he's along similar lines to what we had earlier, talking about the customized hard hat. A hard hat with a counter on it to show the experience you've had in the industry. That way it shows the new ones coming into our industry and may need some guidance. Yeah, I mean, imagine that. You know, we've tended to color code hard hats based on job title, you know, black managers and stuff like that. But what about, you know, the equivalent, some sort of signal like we have with the beacons for seat belts and that kind of thing? What about some sort of flashing beacon on a hard hat? And I'm not talking about a big beacon on top. I'm talking about, you know, like a panel on the side that denotes, you know, this guy knows his shit. This guy is a newbie. This guy has literally never set foot on site before. Maybe take extra care around them. Yeah, I think that's a fantastic idea. I'm loving all of that. We've got one more film for you. We've been to China twice. We've been to Japan once. Next, we're going to Belgium. No waffle, though. I don't want to have a downer on Britain, but I do have a downer on Britain. I look at other countries, particularly sort of Norway and Denmark, and think they really got it figured out. I would say exactly the same about the Dutch. The Dutch just have shit figured out. Look at this. Stefan Edwards. In the Netherlands, a percentage of your salary is reserved for sustainable employability. This can be spent on things like a gym membership or other activities that keep employees healthy and active. It's the Dutch. They just got life figured out. They've got life figured out. Well, thank you for that, Stefan. I had no idea of that. Where are we going? Oh, yes. Well, we're going from the Netherlands. We're going slightly next door. We're going off to Belgium. A couple of weeks ago, I brought you details of some machines from a company called Gebroeders Geens, or Gebroeders Geens, should I say. One of their number actually joined us on the show. Not sure if they're watching today, but if they are, we're about to feature them again. One of the things that attracted me about this film, obviously, you know, we get to have a look behind the scenes of, you know, massive factories with you know, robot production lines from JCB and Komatsu and Caterpillar and Hitachi, LiuGong, Liebherr, and all those kind of things. But there's a certain appeal of the smaller factories where everything is still done very much by hand, a bit like this. There you go. Going to go back to the chat because the chat is fascinating this morning, have to say. Andy Thornton, we're going back to gyms, which I had no intention of talking about this morning, but hey, that's where we are. I'm a big advocate for the NHS, as am I. I've always wondered why we don't have a network of state-run or state-subsidised gyms, prevention rather than cure. Why don't we? Why don't we have that? And surely you would think there's an opportunity to be had there for, as I say, Virgin, is it Virgin Active? Is that the name of their gyms? David Lloyd or any of these people? Surely there's a bit of a scope for a collaboration there, isn't there? Imagine that. Having said that, I do realise what British people are like. I after I had my face smashed into so much powder, I was going backwards and forwards from St George's Hospital in Tooting, and for me to get to the bit that was rebuilding my eye socket, I had to go past some of the more severe areas of the hospital, and the number of people that are stood outside, oxygen tank on a trolley, having a fag. Yeah, there would be some that would be beyond help, but what about those that aren't? What about those that could actually put themselves right? Yeah, and while we're talking about gyms, why not some sort of subsidized food thing, particularly for the less well-off? Healthy food rather than food stamps that they could use at McDonald's, something like that. I'm just saying. Peter McKenna says, morning. The disruptive thorn in everyone's shoes and boots is in the house, and very welcome he is too. Now, Chris Ford, going back to all things related to our question of the day, which is how would you customize your hard hat? I used to put a cloth liner in mine years ago. Not so good for the crushing job. It's a pity they seem so cumbersome when you're having to do some work in them. Yeah, they are. Do you know one of the things that I don't know why I do know why it hasn't caught on. When I was in Japan back in 2019, I was handed a series of hard hats because we were going from site to site to site, and all of them had chin straps. And I have to admit, as a 30-year veteran of the industry, never worn a chin strap in my life. And for about the first 3 minutes, it was like, oh, gee, this is a pain in the arse. It's too tight. Oh no, it's too loose. Once you've got it right, you forget it's there. And if you're working at height and you're looking down, it doesn't fall off. And more than that, if you actually take a stumble and you're likely to strike your noggin, it stays where it should be. There's a display hat. You can see it. Let me do it. There, up on my shelf there. That's got a chin strap. The Italians, or certainly display, chin straps. Perfect. That one also. Can I get it? Just talk amongst yourselves. That's it. Completely ruined the display. But look, so there's the hat. Okay, there's the chin strap. Look at the lining of it. All of that is foam, and hey, you forget you're wearing it. Despade, doing things better than most, as is often the case. Going back to the gym, which is where Jim. Going back to the gym and to gym, cardio first. He used to go to the gym a lot, apparently. Then on the weights, used to do kickboxing training and swimming too, 3 to 5 nights a week. You must have been one serious unit back in the day, Jim, because what are you, 6'2", 6'3"? I mean, I know you're a big fella. Imagine big beardy Jim Turner, ripped to shit. I'd want him on my side in a fight, I know that. That's a nice little machine and well put together. We're going back to Gebroeders Geens. Big fan of Gebroeders Geens. I hope to go to Belgium at some point to actually catch up with them. I am currently working on a trip overseas, and this time I'm not going to tell you where I'm going because I'm going to film a thing, see if you can work it out. Keep watching for that. The chin strap could tighten up if the person is going to make a derogatory or racist remark. Now there's a fine bit of automation. Yes, you're about to say something dodgy, and the hard hat picks up your brain waves and just gives it a little cinch to make you think, should I go ahead with this? Maybe I shouldn't. UK hard hats are a shite design unless you buy the ones the electric lads use. The American ones are more practical. Excuse me. I have a question mark. I've got a Japanese hard hat here, which is collapsible, and I realise that sounds like a contradiction in terms, but it was for travel. I wouldn't use it in a high risk area, but it's quite handy for travel. So I've got a collapsible one from Japan. I've got this one from Italy, which the Italians I think have absolutely mastered. I think it's way more comfortable. It's way more wearable. I would like an American one. Are they permissible on a UK site? If I turned up with that Despe hat on a UK site, would they say, love your hard hat, or would the health and safety police say, get that off your head and wear this bucket instead? I've never tried. I've never tried. Maybe, particularly if I was on a demolition site, maybe somebody would see the Despe badge and go, yeah, they know their shit. That's perfectly fine with us. Maybe they wouldn't. I honestly don't know. It's that time. It is that time. That's about it for the main part of this morning's show. I'm going to roll the outro in just a second before leaping gazelle-like over into my morning monologue, just to bring everybody up to speed, by the way. I mentioned at the top of the show, we are, where are we? We are 19 shows away from our 1000th episode. And I've 90% written a commemorative publication to mark our 1000th show. And things like leaping gazelle-like into my morning monologue get a mention, because these things do have an origin. They didn't just come about. The Walrus of Demolition, that I didn't just come up. I think that was Jim Turner, actually. I think Jim came up with that, if I remember rightly. Anyway, that's all beside the point. I tell you what, let me just address this first. So Jim Turner says, I'm about 6'1" and was a trim 15 to 16 stone. Now I'm 6'1", 20 stone. Fat bastard. I wouldn't listen. We've had this conversation before. I would describe you as a big fella. I wouldn't describe you as fat. You don't look fat to me. You just look like a bit of a unit, as we say down here. They have to be a standard, a BS standard rather, to wear them on a UK site. Yeah, I'm not sure. I mean, I would imagine my Despe one is certainly an EU standard, but not a BS standard. And he says, Mark, I know the hard hat was a bit of a fun idea, but showing that you've got a conduit for a lot of great ideas, why not consider it in your new format, a think tank slot? You see, so we've had some good ideas, and then a guy, Andy Thornton, has had a good idea built around our good ideas. Think tank. Oh, now that's wow. Thank you, Andy. I will note that down. There's something to be had there, because I mean, obviously everything's been focused today, but we have, over the months, we've had lots and lots of ideas on this show. I mean, even going back to the long since disgraced Footy, who used to be here on a regular basis. He used what was it, like a kid's paddling pool ladder, because he had dodgy knees or something, or I can't remember what was wrong with him, but he used a paddling pool ladder to get in and out of his machine. Simple idea, but it worked for him. Yeah, think tank, love it. Dan says, what does Dan say? He says there's an Aussie lad here, has an Australian hard hat, and it's cool. I bet it is. Does it have corks? Are there corks? What are the corks for? Never figured that out. Crazy Edits. Peter McKenna says BS, not British standard, but bullshit. Alex Latham says, as long as it meets the required standard, there's no problem with wearing a different hard hat. He should know, for that is his business. Peter says you cannot wear a foreign hard hat on a UK construction site if it doesn't meet the British standard BS EN 397. So, in all likelihood, our LED panels and our Bluetooth and our Meta glasses probably wouldn't comply. And once again, the powers that be strike down the good ideas from the bottom up. Hard hats, says Nigel Williams, like everything mandatory, it's applied to a price with no concern for comfort. But as individuals, we can upgrade to Gucci at our own cost unless there is a set uniform standard for site. I have seen a few of those, and I know certainly. I mean, I think some of them. I was given one. I was given one, a hard hat, I mean, I've been given loads of hard hats over the years, but I was given one about maybe 18 months, 2 years ago. One, the one with the slightly moving inside frame. I can't remember what it was called, but it's supposed to offer you additional protection and deflect blows and that kind of thing. I was given one of those, and I know there's a few people in the press corps that wear them. I think Paul Argent's got one. Pretty sure Nick Drew's got one. Has Peter Hannett got one? Not sure. Not sure. But there are a few non-standard hard hats out there. I don't know. Don't know. There you are. Dan Cullen says the Breakfast Show think tank. Yeah, listen, I'm doing this on the fly, but I'm running. I've picked up the baton that Andy Thornton has so kindly laid before me. Imagine that if we could, maybe not every show, but once a week, once a month, we could dedicate a part of the show, and not just random, but things like let's do a think tank around hard hats. Let's do a think tank around excavators, around telescopic handlers, around mental health. Just throw it open. Maybe in place of the morning monologue, possibly. Just throw it open and say, okay, what you got then, fellas? How might we improve things? Cask safety helmets like your Despe have a worldwide standard, but would still not be suitable for a UK site. I'm glad I've never tried to wear my Despe one outside here. It looks better on my shelf anyway, and I'm proud to have it. It was a pain in the arse to get it back home again because when I was given it, I'd only taken a bag that was big enough for one day of travel, and I had to really push it into the bag, but I'm glad I did. The list would be endless. And what about the Mystery Machine? The Mystery Machine, I fear, Dan, is dead. Yeah. I listen, I miss it, although it had become a bit of a problem. I do, it's not my idea. I did have a chat with Gary a couple of nights ago, last week, I think it was, about possibly resurrecting it from time to time, but in a different format. Got a couple of ideas on that. One of the ideas is rather than showing the whole machine, to show bits of the machine, just bits. So, a steering wheel or a dashboard or a seat or something like that, and let you figure it out from there. The other idea, which was, I think that was Gary's idea. No, that was Gary's idea. My idea was to flash the machine up on the screen so quickly that nobody can photograph it or snap a picture of it and Google Lens it. So it may come back in some format, not the format that it's in at the moment, though. That's done and dusted. But I've got a few other ideas of how we might carry on with that kind of thing. Anyway, I had Peter McKenna says, do a silhouette of a machine. Yeah, fun enough, I did look at that. I even looked at, there's a software where you can twist an image. So imagine an excavator and it kind of twists and distorts it. Didn't really do it. It either made it so bloody obvious what it was, or so obscure that even the person that invented it would never know what it was. So yeah, but we're working on it. Anyway, I've already said this, but it's about that. That's about it for the main part of this morning show. I'm going to roll the outro in just a second before leaping gazelle-like over into my morning monologue. If you can't stick around for that, please stay safe. Look after yourself, your family, your friends, and your colleagues. I hope to see you again very soon. Tomorrow would be good, but if you do have the time and the inclination, I will be back with my morning monologue immediately after. If you've watched any of the Rocky movies, you've seen him, the fighter. Not the flashy young contender bouncing on his toes, unmarked by the scars of battle. No, this one's been there, in the ring, in the mud, in the dust, in the cold dawns and the long nights. His face carries a reminder of every glove that laid him down or cut him. Bloody cough. That fighter, my friends, is our industry. Demolition and construction. A noble old bruiser that's been swinging for decades. An industry that's tasted glory and hardship in equal measure. An industry that's worn the belts, but also worn the bruises. Look closely and you can see the years etched into him. A nose that's been broken more than once. Maybe the last time was in the early 90s recession. scar tissue around the eyes from the blows of the financial crash in 2008, stiffness in the shoulders from fighting through COVID lockdowns and supply chain chaos, and somewhere deep in the ribs, a dull ache from the Brexit bout. One of those fights where the punches came slow but landed heavy. And yet, here he is, still lacing up the gloves, still answering the call of the bell. But here's the thing, every fighter has a limit. The body can only take so many shots before it slows, before the mind starts wondering just how many more rounds are left in the tank. For our industry, those blows keep coming. Some come from the shifting sands we try to build upon. Demand up one month and down the next. One quarter you're scrambling to find enough workers to handle the workload. The next you're staring at idle machinery and wondering how to keep the lights on. Try building a stable, profitable business on that foundation. It's like trying to plant your feet in a ring with no canvas and no ropes. And then there's the constant and unceasing jab, jab, hook of client demands. We need it done ahead of schedule, jab. Oh, and under budget, jab. Actually, can you make all these changes we just thought of without delaying the completion date? Hook. The bell rings, but there's no time to sit in the corner and spit out the blood. You're straight back in there. Some blows aren't just about time or money, they're about people, or rather, the lack of them. We've got a widening skills gap, fewer young tradespeople coming through, and a generation of experience retiring or walking away. You can't throw the perfect punch without the right technique, and you can't build safely and safely and efficiently without the right people. Every unfulfilled role is another body blow to the industry's stamina. And if you think the opponent is just one fighter, think again. It's like stepping into the ring with two at once. The regulators in one corner and clients in the other. Government and legislators are raising the bar on environmental performance and emissions. Noble goals? Unquestionably. But in the field of demolition and construction, sustainability is just another foe, another source of pain and punishment. And while you're adjusting to meet those ever-tightening environmental standards, clients are still breathing down your neck, wanting it faster, cheaper, better, all while shifting the corner posts mid-fight. And then the economy joins in. One year it's all boom, the next it's bust. Silence on site, and bids undercut so hard they hit bone. The economy doesn't play fair. It's the sucker punch you never see coming until you're on the floor, gasping for air. And still, our fighter stands. He's done it before. Remember the COVID fight? Lockdown, masked up, social distancing on site, scrambling for materials when shipments stalled, keeping people working while the world stopped. Demolition and construction took the hits and stayed on its feet. And there's pride in that. There's nobility in taking the punches and getting back up. Our industry has been doing it for decades. Through recessions, booms, busts, shortages, oversupply, policy changes, and the ever-present public perception that we're somehow less. That same public perception has no comprehension of the sweat, the skill, risk, and sheer endurance it takes to keep the country's industrial heart beating. But there's also the question that every fighter eventually faces. The one you ask yourself quietly between rounds, when the crowd noise fades and all you can hear is your own breathing. How many more fights have I got left? But because it's not just about whether you can keep standing, it's about how many times you can hit the canvas and still find it in you to rise. Every time we survive a downturn, every time we meet a ridiculous deadline, every time we bridge the gap between client fantasy and physical reality, that's another round in the books and another scar. The thing is, our fighter's not just fighting for himself. Every round he stays in the ring keeps 2.5 million others in the fight too. The labourers, the engineers, the machine operators, the planners, the truck drivers, the suppliers. If he falls, they all fall. And he's also fighting for those that can fight no more, the injured and the dead, those that fought and paid the ultimate price. And so he stays, because he's always stayed. This industry is stubborn, resilient, brave. It doesn't throw in the towel. It doesn't know how. It fights because that's what it's always done. Surrender is not in its nature. I do wonder, though, just how many fights the industry has in it. How many more blows the industry can withstand. How many more times it can pick itself up off the canvas and keep on fighting. Demolition and construction is a fighter, a journeyman that carries reminders of every glove that laid him down. But how many battles does it have left in it? I apologize for the stumbling over the words and for the coughing. Nothing I can do about it. As you can clearly see. Yes, there you are. I think I promised that on Friday last week, but there you are. That's what I was coming up with. Dan says, Dan says, very well written. And Jim Turner. We know Jim. We used to. I used to refer to Jim as tunes. Every time we played a bit of music that he liked, he would say tune, because Jim likes his music, and he spotted. Yes, I did steal part of that directly from Mr. Paul Simon, Simon and Garfunkel, the boxer. In the clearing stands a boxer, and a boxer by his trade, and he carries a reminder of every glove that laid him down or cut him till he cried out in his anger and his pain, I am leaving, but the fighter still remains. Jim, well spotted, and yes, there you are. Yes, there are some people that don't have a clue, likes of government. Construction demolition, and they will never throw in the towel, because both are absolutely necessary. But it does make you wonder just how much more those joint industries can actually withstand. And when you think about it as punches, COVID and Brexit and supply shortages, and red diesel subsidies being taken away, and skill shortages and mental health crises, and gender inequality, and boom and bust, and boom and bust, and my punching action looks very bad, but I've got a microphone in me. Give me a break here. But you know what I'm saying. You know what I'm saying? It's just one blow after another, and it is constant. It is. I mean, I mentioned it in there. It is a constant jab, 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 and then the occasional hook. The recession that comes out of nowhere that takes everybody by surprise. And we're so at the mercy of stuff that is beyond our control. If we have a shifting government and they decide they could quite actually bring forward the zero emissions deadline. We're currently working towards 2050. Somebody might decide it'd be a vote winner to make it 2045 or 2040. Then where will we be? Brexit came out of absolutely left field, and I was writing about this, funnily enough, when I was talking about the birth of the Breakfast show. I remember I travelled to America. I mean, you will recall that my live streaming career started after ConExpo 2020. I travelled to Las Vegas, and I went there in the knowledge that COVID-19 was a thing. But when I left here, all of the coverage had been, based around China. There were people flaking out in the street in China. There was talks about, bats and wet markets and Lord alone knows what else. There was all of those things. But at no point when I traveled to America did I think it might get me, it might become a global lockdown, it might be a global pandemic. At no point. And that came in out of left field. It came out of left field and absolutely, for a few weeks, floored the UK demolition and construction industry until we were given key worker status. And then when you think about that, while the rest of the country, myself included, is tucked away safely at home, surrounded by their family, they're baking banana bread and they're clapping for the NHS, where are the demolition and construction workers? They're out there still fighting, still slugging away. That's what I'm talking about. Jim Turner says it's a fantastic song. That entire album, that's off Bridge Over Troubled Water, the album by Simon and Garfunkel. I would like to think this is a non-controversial statement. I would like to suggest that Paul Simon is actually the greatest lyricist of all time. Listen, I realise there will be good shouts for Dylan and for Lennon and McCartney and people like that. Personally speaking, I think the Chris Difford and Glenn Tilbrook from Squeeze, I think, were fantastic lyricists. But Paul Simon, for me, is the man. Excuse me. And The Boxer is a fantastic song. It really is a fantastic song. Bridge Over Troubled Water, fantastic song. If I were to actually put my hand up and say this is the high watermark for Simon and Garfunkel, America. Counting the cars on the New Jersey Turnpike, we've all gone to look for America. That's a tune and a half. Dale Hawkins is over on Instagram. Morning, Dale. Good of you to join us. HSE are looking at reworking some of their advice for manual workers surrounding working outside in hot weather. Right. So I tell you what, I'm going to. I'm in the lap of the gods here. I might be proven completely wrong. I'm going to my app. On here somewhere there is an app. Now, bearing in mind, a couple of weeks ago, the weather here in the UK was 29, 30, 31, 32 degrees. Okay, so incredibly hot for the UK, incredibly hot. I'm looking at my my 10-day forecast here on my weather app on my iPhone. There you are. That's what it looks like. Now, as I say, we hit highs of as I say, 29, 30, 31, 32 degrees. Today, the high where I am will be 17. Tomorrow, 16. Wednesday, 14. Thursday, 13. Friday, 10. So we are, the HSE is now offering guidance on working in unusually hot weather just as we slip into autumn and we all start digging out our jumpers. The HSE, don't you love them? Finger on the pulse, because you know how summer comes completely out of left field. There you are, you're minding your own business come June or July, and all of a sudden this big fucking orange thing appears in the sky. What is that? You ask yourself. Well, that's the sun. Is it? Is it hot? Yes, it is. That apparently takes the health and safety executive by surprise. I'm so glad that the health and safety of 2.5 million or more people are in their very, very capable hands. Andy Thornton says, every boxer needs to pick his battles. We may not be able to control legislation and compliance requirements, but we can control our mental health and fitness, behavior and camaraderie. Yeah. If, going back to the whole notion of think tanks and stuff, if I can offer, if I could offer some guidance myself to the wider industry, imagine I'm stood on a podium in front of 2.5 million plus men and women of the construction and demolition industry. My advice would be basically that: don't wait for the powers that be, don't wait for your employer, don't wait for the legislators, don't wait for anyone to take care of you. Take care of yourself. Yeah. Nigel Williams says, better than Cardi B? Surely you're mistaken. Does Cardi B actually have lyrics? Or is it just a bunch of effing and jeffing and showing her ass? I don't know enough about the subject. I'm just questioning that. Peter says, have you missed my earlier message about the poem I've written for you, Mark? I must have done. You've written a poem? You've written a poem? What in the... How did I miss that? I'm not seeing that at all, Peter. Send it again. I want to have a look at that. Was that the Italian kid? Was what the Italian kid? Don't know. Italian kid? trying to think what we're talking about. Simon and Garfunkel? Don't know. Jim, enlighten us. Please enlighten us. I'm not sure where you're going with that. But Peter McKenna has written us a poem. It's not in WhatsApp, is it, Peter? Or haven't you sent it yet? I don't know. There is a message in WhatsApp. What is that? Oh, and now I'm gonna go be very bold here because I've not read this. I hope it doesn't get sweary and unpleasant. I hope it doesn't get abusive or anything. But this is from Peter McKenna. It's called Ode to the Morning Monologue. Kettle sings, dawn yawns, screens glow bright. Steel wakes first light with a bite. Tracks clink, booms lift, dust curls slow. Breakfast served with a wrecking show. We've got the crack, the sideways takes, debates that twist like breaker rakes. From high-reach giants to dinky kit, we rate each swing, each perfect hit. Plans go wonky, bets are laid. Would you salvage that or call it played? Lorries hum, hard hats nod, then hush. It's time for Mark's first song. Unless he's off on his jolly somewhere, we're front row pews in that morning chair. He warms the room with grit and a grin and starts the shift with steel to skin. He spins the tale, we sip our tea, words of brobble and remedy. And when it lands, that final joke, daylight feels twice as wide awake. And so here's to rigs and rivets ring, to small machines that do big things, but most of all to Mark's first word, the finest sound a crew's ever heard. Wow. I listen, I want that on a t-shirt. Quite a big t-shirt. I want it on a plaque on the Peter. Listen. I said at the top of the show. I'd like to think I'm not one of these. It is quite easy to dismiss those that work in construction as, that they are the knuckle dragging, calluses on their hand, nothing between the ears. People that watch this show, or people that don't often watch the show, take a look around. We've had a whole entire piece of engineering genius on how we might make better use of hard hats. We've had an idea from Andy Thornton, a think tank for the show, because let's face it, where else can you do that? Come back to that in a moment. So imagine that. Imagine that. All of that brain power. And we're talking here, I mean, I think 20, 30, 40 people here, usually for a live show. Imagine what you could do if you got that, if you could tap into that 2.5, 2.6 million people in the industry. Some of the stuff that you could come up with. And I have been thinking, by the way, I've written the title and I've written the intro. Well, whether I'll ever publish it, I don't know. But I was actually thinking about the NFTC. I don't very often these days because, why would I? But I did wonder about the NFTC, about what they're actually doing. If you go back long enough, you might recall that they used to do big things. They used to do big things. They introduced their own form of training. They had their own standards, their own codes of conduct and codes of practice. They had their own audit scheme, all designed to raise and raise and raise standards. They're barely relevant these days. And it's things like this, where else? And this is not me blowing my trumpet because I'm just a conduit. But where else would you actually share this stuff? And even that hard hat idea, let's take that as an example. If you were to take that hard hat idea, we could have safety messages displayed on there, or competence, or whatever it might be. You might take that to your boss or your site manager, or it might go up the line. You might even take it to the client you're working for, and they might, oh, that's a good idea. Put it in the suggestion box. Yeah, there you go. There's a £20 Marks and Spencer's voucher. Thank you for your great idea. Nothing. And chances are it will never go beyond the suggestion box, never go beyond the client or the contractor, never go beyond that site, and it will never ever happen. So where is this? This ability to say, I've got an idea that will be for the greater good. And even on that point, when was the last time? And I would say the NFTC, the CPA, the CEA, Build UK, all of these organisations. When was the last time they did something or said something that you actually thought, wow, that is for the greater good. The greater good. If anybody's seen the film Hot Fuzz, you'll know exactly what I'm doing there. When was the last time somebody actually came up with something that wasn't self-serving, wasn't after some sort of public recognition, wasn't after a trophy or a medal, basically came up with something that you thought that they are trying to move the needle, they are trying to make a positive change to this industry. When was the last time? Because I've got to be honest with you, I can't think of one. The NFTC are off on their annual convention fairly soon, August bank holiday weekend. Somebody did tell me where they're going. Not that it matters, it's somewhere overseas. What will they come back with, aside from a suntan? Are they going to come back with some new methodology, some new initiative, some new campaign that is going to make things better for their members and for the wider industry? Or are they just going to come back with a hangover? Still don't know who the Italian kid was. Okay. It's an Only Fools and Horses reference. Camaraderie. I didn't realise that. Camaraderie. Um, um, Dan says there's some people in construction that have no clue. I've had a few messages at the weekend on to joining my groups. Sent the flyer of what was needed. Turns around asking, what do I need to do? You're going to get a mixed bag. I know you were talking about this over on the WhatsApp group over the weekend. I didn't have time to respond. Although I think everybody, Al Grissom, morning Al, if you're watching, and Peter and Jim, people like that responded to it. You are going to get a mixed bag, but for I mean, even if there's 100 people that are daft as a brush, you've told them what to do and they still can't do it. Let's face it, we see that on site all the time. We know what the rules and the regulations are. We know what they were told in their induction. We know what they were told in their pre-start meeting, and they still go and do something else. There will always be those. But what is the vehicle for the others, the ones at the other end of the spectrum, the ones that have got bright ideas? The Jim Turner has got an idea for a revolutionary new machine just lurking behind his frontal cortex somewhere. Where is the organisation that will take Andy Thornton's idea of gym membership to cut NHS costs? Where is that? Where is the technology company linked to the demolition and construction industry that can take Nigel and Dan's idea of making a hard hat more than just a plastic lid, making it actually serve more of a purpose? Where are those? Where are the vehicles? Where are the mediums for you to discuss those things? They don't exist. Plant Works is coming up. That's not a forum for it. Hillhead will be coming along fairly soon after. That's not a forum for it. There are magazines out there. They're not a forum for it. You wouldn't be allowed into an NFTC or a CPA meeting, so that's not a forum for it. So where are all those ideas going? Or are they just floating around between the ears of some really, really smart people, and never the twain shall meet? Ram Demolition just joined us over on Instagram. We're winding down now, Ram Demolition, but thank you very much indeed for being here. I appreciate your company. Anywho, people, I'm going to be back tomorrow with yet more of the same. I'm fairly sure I've half written tomorrow's. Can't remember what it's about. I'd love to give you a heads up, but I can't remember what it's about. But I have half written tomorrow's morning monologue. So I'll be back 10 a.m. Let's have a look. Peter McKenna says, I've opened so many cans of worms with what I'm doing, Mark. It takes someone like me to stand out. Sound that out. Yes, I have the naysayers and the haters, but for the most, totally positive. There you are. See? Now, even if you play the averages, okay? Imagine, I don't know how many there are, but imagine Jim has got 100 ideas in his head for improvements to existing machines, to designs of new machines, or in designs for bits of new machines, and so on down the line. Right? Imagine he's got 100, and only one of those is actually practical and achievable, is that not worth exploring? You know, if and I mean, I don't know what those ideas are, but if Jim has got an idea that could save fuel, increase productivity, cut repair costs, save a life, is that not worth exploring? Is it not? Andy Thornton said, "It's been emotional." Ah, yes, we're doing all the movie and the music references today. That one is Lock, Stock, and Two Smoking Barrels, I believe. Possibly delivered by Vinnie Jones. I think I can see that in my head. Dan Cullen saying, "Have a great day, lads." Thank you very much indeed, Dan. And Jim says, "I openly want to change, and machine design development is my ideal next step. Manufacturers of the world. Meet Jim. Jim, meet the manufacturers of the world. Get your heads together." As I say, even if you've got 100 ideas, you threw them all at the wall and only one of them stuck, would that not be worth the exploration? How refreshing would it be, rather than machines? And listen, I do think the manufacturers of equipment are very, very good at doing what they do. But rather than designing a machine or a bit of a machine or an attachment in splendid isolation, in a very safe and secure ivory tower, and then saying to the market, here's a thing, what we've created. What do you think? What about doing it the other way round and taking somebody that lives and breathes this, that is 12 hours behind the levers every single day, sometimes 7 days a week, and that person says, if you could just do that, this would improve that, which would improve that, which would reduce that. Is that not worth exploring? Surely. Now, I realise doing that 2.5 million tonnes will be quite hard, but the chances are, I mean, I laughingly said about Dan Cullen with his advertising on hard hats. There could well be, within Dan's head, within Jim's head, within Andy Thornton's head, there could well be $1 million idea just waiting for somebody to say, "Thank you, I'll make that happen." Jim Turner says, "The problem comes first, then the grey matter gets rolling, and I come up with possible solutions." Yeah. Whereas, I mean, I do think to a degree, manufacturers, as I say, I love them to death, some more than others, but I do love the equipment manufacturers. I do think they do it the other way around. In many cases, here's a solution to a problem you didn't even know you had. Think about that. Think about the number of times you looked at a machine and thought, "Oh, that's good. I mean, I never wanted it, but I'm quite pleased I've got it now, but yeah, I'd managed for 30 years without that, but thanks, I guess." Wouldn't it be better to come up with something that actually, I mean, going back to our former friend Footy, that access to machines. Every single operator, whether you're young or old, able or disabled, getting in and out of excavators is a pain in the bloody arse, and sometimes a pain in the hips, knees, and back as well. Surely we could, between us, we could come up with something better than that, couldn't we? Couldn't we? Jim Turner says, "Then I rerun the footage in my head over and over in various scenarios. It's very OCD and autistic, but it works. Sometimes that's what it takes. Obsessive personality is precisely what it takes." How many iterations of the iPhone were there before it was right and for launch? How many iterations of the Model T Ford were there before it was actually offered to the public? How many light bulbs were produced before they went, "Yep, that's the one that does the job"? Anywho, people, that's an hour and 21 minutes. These shows are getting longer and longer. Everybody go and have a good day. Put your thinking heads on. I'm going to note down the idea of the think tank. I'm going to give Andy Thornton due recognition for it, and I'll be back tomorrow. And Andy says, speaking of Andy, if you want to be a solution finder, read Edward de Bono. Edward de Bono. My son went to school with somebody with a surname de Bono. I wonder if there was There can't be that many de Bonos about, can there? I don't think it's got anything to do with you two either, is it? De Bono? Ignore me, it's been a long morning. Go and have a good day, everybody. I'll see you tomorrow at 10 a.m. for yet more of the same. Till then, have a good one.